All yours, Shawn. Away you take it.
Oh wow. Okay. So welcome everybody. Thank you for taking the time out. I got a green screen behind me. Hopefully it's not too much of a distraction. I seem to be fading out with the camera view, the Zoom stuff. I usually use Google Meet. Could have did an additional tech review to see how it's going to render. But if you can see me, you can hear me, then I think we'll be good to go. It looks like we got two more people coming in. I'll just let them in now. Oh, and one more. So,
And I'll take that over for you, Shawn. So you
okay,
can go ahead. I'll
beautiful.
take over. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So, a pretty good group of people. That's 48 in counting. So, yeah, thank you for taking time. Hopefully, you enjoyed the conference so far. I noticed that there were a few people that had some challenges in accessing materials, believing that they were missing out. You're not missing out. Okay, so the link that is currently on the site is for a PDF of a marketing thing, right? So it's a poster for this particular event. You haven't missed out on anything. What I will do as a courtesy to all the folks here is put a link within the chat box, which will give you access to a Google Drive, which has the PowerPoint slides embedded in it and a number of resources that I'm hoping that you'll be able to utilize following today's presentation. Hello, Sandra from PI. That's really cool to have the diversity of individuals across the country here. So there's too many of us to kind of do a full introduction. But what I'll do is I will begin the screen share now, and jump in, and we'll see what we can do going forward. Could I get a thumbs up that you can see the PowerPoint presentation? Yeah. All right. Thank you, folks. And here we go. All right. So now. I've been doing this stuff for quite some time, for supporting individuals with problem gambling. This right here is not going to be a one and done workshop by any means. Although I do specialize in gambling disorder, I don't identify myself as being the go-to guru on these types of things. So hopefully we cover some ground, but I want to let you know that this workshop itself is kind of like a one-on-one, right? It's not for I guess seasoned clinicians that are looking to hone their gambling skill sets. It's basically, here you go, going to introduce it and see whether or not it applies to your respective client base. There we go. So introductions, I'll give a brief introduction on who I am, what I do, although Crystal did a fantastic job, very humbling job last night. A summary of the work that I do, some commonalities around the dependencies, when we talk about substance use disorder, some risk factors, and again, give you some treatment resources by the end of the day. All right, so level one introductions. So first off, over this past weekend, there was a lot of reference to indigenous knowledge and reverence for different, I guess, worldviews and respective of the original peoples. It's automatically skipping on me. So I have been given the name of the spirit of the White Eagle Featherman. In Ojibwe, it's Manitowa Megazimi Nine Indigenous. So I have my undergrad in Native Studies through Trent University, although, the term's not politically correct today. That was what I went through. It wasn't too long ago. Don't want to be dating myself too much. But I have walked the good red road and familiar with a number of ceremonies, traditions, that type of thing. So whenever First Nations issues come up, I'm definitely a champion and a strong advocate for those types of systemic changes that definitely need to happen. So just want to be upfront with that, that I have a sensitivity and a respect for First Nations worldview. I'm also, as I mentioned last night, a person with lived experience. I go by a couple different monikers: Stigma Slayer, Difference Maker, and Hope Dealer. I had an individual on the units. In my day job, I support individuals with concurrent disorders and work out of the local hospital on the mental health and emergency units. So on the mental health unit, I had a few clients referring to me as a hope dealer as opposed to a dope dealer. And I love it. I think it's great. I try to communicate that. And so when I'm doing my sales pitch to clients, I often tell them, I'm selling you recovery, and I really don't have to say much because it sells itself. And so they appreciate that aspect. As was referred to last evening, I am the president of the Canadian Problem Gambling Certification Board. It really is the counterpart to the CACCF. Right, we are a gold standard certification body who assists individuals with obtaining clinical skill sets, through educational opportunities, in addition to credentialing, certifying those respective individuals so that they can communicate to their clientele that they have a gold standard certification that's been vetted by our certification board. We've been doing this for well over 20 years, since the kind of first deluge of gambling in Ontario, and have been going strong ever since. So need to mention that this presentation is not, I'm not representing the board per se, but certainly have their blessing in sharing my affiliation with the board itself. So, I'll often, first conversation I'll have with clients, or, people that I meet, they'll say, all right, you're an addictions counselor. So what's your addiction? Right. And without going into a whole slew, well, this is my history and I was raised here, and, sharing my experience, strength, and hope, as some 12-step members would acknowledge or refer to. I often tell them that my addiction is education. And it really is. I have a number of degrees, college certificates. I keep on going. I'm still going. And part of the reason why that is in truth, I had a grandfather who, prior to his passing, when I was, in high school, said, "Stay in school, Shawn." And he died before he could tell me to stop. So here I just keep on going, right? But it really is important, as you know, like you're here to enhance your skill set, to be better positioned to serve, because we just never know who might be walking through that door and what issues they may present with. And I believe in coordinated care, right? I certainly respect the skill sets and the knowledge, the experience of my industry colleagues through different disciplines, social workers, psychiatrists, etc. But if an individual is walking through my door, I don't want to have to immediately send them away and say, "Sorry, I can't help you." Right? I don't want to be a one size fits all, but I think it's important to have some knowledge to help identify what may be going on and direct individuals in the proper space. Okay, so and people say, "Oh, what does this letter mean? That letter mean?" There you go. There's the legend. That's what I got so far. I am currently working on getting my CSAT for anyone who's familiar with the addiction industry. I am a sexual recovery therapist through the American Association of Sex Addiction Therapists, but I am looking to get my certified sex addiction therapist credential, which takes a little bit of time. but I think that it will be well worthwhile because, again, they are the gold standard when it comes to sex addiction therapy. I'm okay with having silver for now, but I definitely want to tune it up so that I can say that I provide quality supports that are acknowledged by the industry itself. All right, so I did mention my day job. My evening job, I run a private practice. Hence the lettering and all that kind of stuff. So my evening private practice involves supporting individuals with the multiple dependencies, from process to chemical, as well as persons affected by another person's use or behavior. And of course, you have mental health issues that kind of intersect with that or precede it in some cases. I am going to just remove some layers here because I'm finding it very distracting for myself. There you go. Okay. Go back to here. All right. So that's the introductions. Hopefully, you got a good sense that my bio speaks for itself. Gambling dependency. Some people call it gambling addiction. Compulsive. The persons in the rooms of Gamblers Anonymous will call it compulsive gambling. Whatever you call it, for the people that present with that concern, it's a problem for them, right? And I really, I just say, how are you dealing with that particular issue or that problem? I try to frame it, I guess, in Canadian sensitivities. We don't like the word addiction so much, but yeah, gambling dependency is what we'll go with for now. For individuals coming in that want to know, how do I have one? There are two primary references. As you know, working in the industry, you got your DSM-5 and your ICD book. I really like the ICD because it's a little bit more inclusive. It includes sexual addiction as well as internet gaming disorder. So kudos to the World Health Organization. Hopefully the American Psychiatric Association will catch up and we'll have some more addendums to the DSM or the DSM-6. So I'll have people saying, can you diagnose? And of course I can't. I have a lot of letters behind my name, but none of them say PhD. So I say, if it walks like a duck, talks like a duck, it might be a duck. What I can do is I can introduce them to a number of screeners. And if it is that they self-identify, then we can direct them, refer them to a psychologist, psychiatrist, doctor who can give them that formal diagnosis, whether it's beneficial for them or not. But so there are a number of validated screeners that assist with that, including the DSM-5 criteria, which I'll review in a moment. Chicken or the egg? Where do we start, right? We got a lot of people with experience in supporting individuals with chemical dependencies. Oftentimes the person will say, the problem is that I gamble too much or I drink too much. But the thing about it is that ultimately they're gambling in many cases because there is an underlying problem that they may or may not be aware of. Right? They could be living a certain way, having this lifestyle for a long time, that they forget what's really going on. And so, when we are working with persons that are presenting with gambling dependency, it's about identifying what's going on. What is the gambling doing for you? Right. So I'm hoping that your skill sets, you're starting to kind of put some pieces together to see, okay, this isn't really a scary thing, right? It's another behavior. It's another way of coping, another way of self-medicating. And I don't want to pathologize anyone. But in many cases that tends to be the hits the mark, right? Is that it's not the problem, it's the solution to the problem. And you find that when you're building that rapport with your respective client. All right, so to normalize it, by show of hands, you can use the feature on your on the Zoom to maybe raise your hand or thumbs up. Have you done any of these things? Participating in sports pools, family bets, raffles, dares, marbles, etc. Jennifer and David. It's like, where's that button? I don't know, Shawn. It's the interactive piece. Yeah, a lot of folks. All right, perfect. Thank you. So, I do prevention and education. Sometimes I've gone to schools and worked with the kids in the schools. Grade 5 and grade 10 are kind of like the access points through the health and math curricula. Excuse me. So talking about mental health in the health class, the neurology of the brain, right? Neural pathways and dopamine and all the other effects. And for math, talk about odds and probability, and it's kind of like the way in, right? To do those educational sessions. So if you're looking for how do I get into the school board, that's the way that I've historically been able to participate. So, when talking to the kids, talking to audiences, participants, workshop participants such as yourself, and they're like, I don't gamble, right? Well, okay, I bet you do, right? Like, I'll take that bet. So, and then I got them, right? So we gamble pretty much every day, right? Spindle's popular, yeah. The raffles, they drive me crazy, right? Oftentimes there's the optics, right? There's optics. We have a local treatment facility here in Windsor, and they have an annual lottery, and it's big, right? People win houses and millions of dollars, and but if they're supporting individuals with gambling disorder, it doesn't kind of work so much for me. But that's my political soapbox aspect. So talking about gambling, one of the other I guess sticking points or pet peeves for myself as a gambling professional, a counseling professional, is when I hear of parents and caregivers allowing kids to scratch tickets, right, or putting the scratch tickets in the stockings for those that celebrate Christmas or any other kind of special event, having them gamble at a that there is a legal age for that kind of stuff, and there's a reason for it, right? It's the same kind of idea as putting a Mickey or a bag of weed or edibles in somebody's birthday gift box when they're underage, right? The brains are very impressionable, and they haven't been fully formed for making those executive functions, and dependency can start pretty early. Any questions with that so far? No? Okay. I do have the chat box running, so I can see if you present any questions. But yeah, I'm reading some of the comments and identifying with gambling in your areas. Yeah, I'm sure you're not completely oblivious to what's happening in that industry. So, definition of gambling: it's essentially it's when you put something of risk, and there's an associated chance with the outcome, right? So quite simple. And so I was speaking before to somebody at the beginning of the conference of that the leadership board, right, of winning the prize of a sponsored or a complimentary membership for the CACCF. And that'd be nice, right? Like save bills, that kind of thing. That right there is not gambling, although it's fine line, because there is an associated risk. Like you're not risking anything, right? Other than your time, right? Because it seems that I tried staying on that leaderboard, and I was number 10 for a day. I just couldn't keep up. It was very proactive people and engaged. So that is a really cool opportunity for us to be connected in a virtual sense. So that's the working definition of gambling. And for the folks that attend Gamblers Anonymous, they will confirm that. They say, yeah, that works for us too. There's is everyone familiar with that show, My Strange Addiction? we've heard of that, right? You got that commonality or catchphrases around, I'm addicted to this, right? Before when I was introducing myself, I'm going to say I'm addicted to schooling. Now there is a risk to that, and I have experienced some negative effects of my dependency on schooling. My pocketbook is pretty lighter. Haven't been able to go on that grand vacation because I keep on investing, but that's not the same as a gambling addiction, or it's not the same as a chemical dependency at all, right? The impacts of one's engagement with those behaviors, the consequences are very, very different. So, my ears perk up whenever I hear like radio jocks, the promoting a song or talk about the common issues of the day and saying, I'm addicted to watching this particular show or whatever. But I think we use the terms addiction quite too loosely in many cases. What time about hand games and addiction? I'm not quite sure what that means, Daryl, for your comment there about hand games in indigenous cultures, but maybe you can write in the chat box, or we could, I guess, identify that at the end for a question period. So online gambling in Ontario, and again, I apologize for our folks throughout the nation. My scope, although I do serve as the credentialing body for all of Canada. Many of my stats, my reference points are Ontario based, given that that's where I am. Right, that's where the majority of my work falls. But in 2015, the Ontario Lottery Gaming Commission or governing body launched an online gambling platform called playolg.ca, quite a popular website, and that's kind of replicated in many of the provinces throughout the nation. The argument was that we need to stop the gray market gambling providers from I guess having our potential clients, right? There's lost revenue, but also, from a public health perspective, so there's a decent argument that if we are able to provide those services, we could regulate them, we could provide prevention and player controls, so that we might be able to kind of have a positive impact on preventing further gambling harms from developing. So in Ontario, they have 2% of the revenue, slot space revenue, prior to the launch of the online platforms. 2% of the revenue was to go back into the treatment system to support individuals like myself as a gambling counselor or prevention and education specialist, treatment centers, etc. All those individuals have benefited. Essentially, I have my job, or I've been working in this field for close to 10 years now, because people have a gambling dependency, which is, I attended, I don't know if any of you attended Dean's workshop there, working myself out of a job. If there wasn't people that were gambling, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing, right? Dr. Bruce Ballin, anyone familiar with him? Again, a regional, he's an Ontario guy. He is a very smart dude. he's really funny. He reminds me a lot of Rick Moranis. He's got that childlike facial features, and he's got a beautiful sense of humor. He is a specialist in his own right. He's a psychiatrist and has been very instrumental in working with CAMH with promoting awareness around gambling disorder and other process dependencies. One of the things that he said is that there's a 3 to 4 times higher rate of developing a dependency to gambling for those individuals who do so online. Right, so the place and the accessibility definitely has an impact on the potential to develop a dependency. Well, what they say is the stats are very similar to chemical dependency in that, you got like less than a 10% chance of becoming a quote unquote addict in your lifetime, right? But that doesn't mean that problems cannot present themselves from periodic or more steady gambling practices. So, reason for gambling, a variety of reasons, right? If you ask your clients, how come you gamble? And I'm hoping that if you do have any person that's presenting with, I think I have a gambling problem, that's going to be one of the questions that you ask, right? Is, why do you gamble? Tell me about it, right? Just to have that kind of non-judgmental conversation. Some of the reasons be the same as what you might have experienced with chemical dependencies, and that, I do it for entertainment, right? To socialize. I do it. For escape. I do it to cope with stress. It's exciting. I do it to give back as a charity, right? And oftentimes that's what we end up doing with gambling anyway, right? Is giving back to the casino or wherever we're gambling at. And there's the house always wins, and there definitely is a leaning towards that, right? Statistically, the gambling vendors would not be in the business if there wasn't an advantage on their end. So those are some of the reasons. The list is not exhaustive, but gives you some key insight for what are some of the motivations. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to yeah, thank you, Daryl. I'm going to put in the chat the link that I had referred to for the Google Drive. I don't know if you all had access to that through the Wova app, but there it is. Hopefully, you have it gives you direct access. I said, you can share this link. This link is accessible for anybody who has who's been given it. If you are unable to access the resources in there, you're welcome to email me and I will personally send you an attachment with all that stuff. Okay. So when is it a problem? We talk about the stigma of addictions, and one of my monikers is Stigma Slayer, and I like to talk about what people believe, right, and challenge that, not in a confrontational way, but in a playful, curious way, right? Meaningful, but people don't necessarily respond to like, "Oh, you're wrong," and it's like, "Well, why do you think that? What's going on? Have you thought about this?" Right? There are individuals that are homeless as a result of gambling, right? They went all in. And this picture speaks a thousand words, as many pictures do. But when we think about a person with a gambling dependency, if this is the first image that comes to mind, I would suggest that that's a problem, right? Just the same as we would for a person with a chemical dependency, right? If this is what we see, this is what we envision, is the person on the park bench, with the trench coat, the old 50s kind of depiction with a brown paper bag, and that's problematic, and it certainly needs to be challenged. So I guess the question for you folks is what does a person with a gambling disorder look like? Maybe I'll look around the room. Anyone? Yeah, thanks, Audrey. It could definitely be anyone. Has Before I go further, has anyone had a person in their roster, their clientele that has presented with a gambling dependency, either as a primary dependency or as a secondary one? Okay, Marianne, thank you. Somebody said yes, and I referred them to you. Oh, thank you for doing that. That's very kind. Uh, so I don't know if any of you are involved, and I'll put a little plug for the CACCF. I volunteer with their telemedicine platform, and I do so because it's good to give back, but the other reason is because at present, and I'm hoping this is going to change after today, is that there are not a large number of people with gambling counseling backgrounds that can support individuals that are asking for help with their respective gambling dependencies. So, being a resource that way is important. And being able to kind of direct people to other service providers for more meaningful, individualized supports is something that I believe in, and so that's part of the reason I'm involved with the volunteer aspect. I have a mall addiction. Yeah. So I'm also a shopping dependency counselor. So I'd like to have a conversation with you, Murray, at some point in time. Maybe tell you about some supports that are available. Oftentimes we say I'm addicted to Amazon shopping, and I think my bill for Amazon has gone up this year as opposed to any other year with the pandemic shopping and so on. So one of the challenges with gambling that is a little bit different than chemical. There are a lot of differences, but similarities as well. Is that problem gambling is often referred to as the invisible addiction. And the reason being is because you cannot really tell unless you are a seasoned therapist to know whether or not or a family member, whether somebody has recently gambled. You can't smell it on their breath. Their gait is not unsteady. They seem to be functioning well. They may be on autopilot, but their eyes are not reddened and that type of thing. Very different than chemical dependency, right? And again, you got some of the other terminology on this slide here with the pathological gambling and so on. And the other difference with gambling disorder as compared to chemical dependency is that it's the only dependency that the solution to the problem is the problem, right? Like if I go to the casino and I win X amount of dollars, then I could have many of my financial problems solved, right? Whereas comparison, if I am dependent on, say, cocaine, I go see my dealer and I do X amount of substance, right? I'm still going to wake up the next morning and have my home or unless I get kicked out by my spouse, but I'm not going to lose everything, right? Whereas gambling, you certainly can. I've worked with in the course of 10 years, I've worked with a number of individuals and there's a lot of sad stories, right? One of the more touching stories is hearing of seniors who just find out that their partner has gambled away their life savings. Their retirement fund is gone. Their second mortgage, it's been, they've remortgaged their house, unable to recoup their losses in what time remains of their life here on planet Earth, right? That they just don't have the opportunity to make that money back, and now they have to, quote unquote, pivot to get into a place where they're no longer grieving the old life or the potential life that they could have been living, and adjust to the life that the new standard of living that their finances will allow. That's very, very sadly. And yeah, you certainly can lose everything no matter what your addiction is, but the financial aspect, it's one deal, right? Is what I find with clients, and single event sports betting has been an issue that's been pushed and pushed and pushed, and it's finding traction throughout North America right now, where that opportunity to lose everything financially can happen quite quickly. The other thing, when we talk about losing everything, gambling disorder, in comparison to any other dependency, has a higher statistical rate of suicidal ideation and completion than any other addiction, right? It's not good. It's not good to have a suicidal ideation in any respect. But that's what the stats will say, is that gambling persons with gambling disorder lose that sense of hope more readily and to a greater degree than other dependencies out there. So signs of problem gambling, very similar to other disorders. Again, that they may be borrowing or stealing money to support their respective vice. Conflict with others regarding their gambling practices, inability to stop, stress-related challenges, neglect of self-care, unaccounted for time is definitely something that is a visible sign. DSM-5 criteria, you're welcome to pull this off. It is in that resource package, that link that I provided with you. Essentially, we are asking a series of questions and seeing whether or not the individual endorses 4 or more of the 9 domains. Needs to gamble with increasing amounts of money in order to achieve a desired excitement. So that refers to tolerance, right? Increased tolerance. Often gambles when distressed. That escape factor. Unable to stop, etc. On the next page, relies on others to provide money to relieve desperate financial situations caused by gambling. Just I need to pay my bills, and you would hear this with the chemical dependencies as well. For some individuals, they spend all their funds on supporting their self-medication and unable to afford their other responsibilities. Any questions with that stuff so far? Okay. Seeing a lot of engaged faces, but no hands up. That's okay. We'll continue on. Gambling continuum, very similar again to chemical dependencies. You got on the left side, depending on how you're looking at this, from my perspective, on the left side, you got no gambling at all, right? Going all the way up to what is defined as pathological gambling. And a person can go from 0 to hero in no time, right? Or they could, gamble occasionally or have regular gambling without any serious effects, right? They never cross that quote unquote invisible line. AA's got a number of cool catchphrases, and one of them is around the pickle and the cucumber. And when I'm talking to a person with gambling disorder, I ask them, are you a pickle or are you a cucumber? Because they want to go back to safely gambling again. And for some individuals, that's possible. I believe it's possible, right? But for others, going back to gambling is just too much for them, right? It's not safe for them to do so. And really, it's about meeting the client where they're at and seeing whether or not that's them, right? If they kind of fall on that far right side of that continuum to be a pathological gambler, where gambling is, they go back to the same threshold or level of gambling whenever they return to it. So using the stages of change is what we do in the gambling treatment industry, same as what you would do, meeting the client where they're at. Maintenance stage, I very rarely have clients call me up, hey, Shawn, I just want to maintain my recovery, although they do sometimes. I'm a recovery coach as well. So, helping folks keep that progress going is, it's a very satisfying endeavor. But most times I'll have individuals presenting with concerns, and our members of the certification board have clients presenting either in the pre-contemplation or the contemplation stage, right? Like, I'm coming here because my wife told me I had to, right? I don't really have a problem. She's got the problem. What are you going to do about it, kind of thing. And again, it's about using your clinical skill set to engage the individual where they're at. Treatment approaches, very similar again to what you would do in your respective roles, using the stages of change, get motivational interviewing, harm reduction, definitely, referring to mutual support groups, using CBT. If you are I guess, authorized to do so. I can certainly do the soft skill stuff, but nothing formal. If you're not part of a regulated body here in Ontario, that's another soapbox thing that I'm pushing for systemic change on, and hopefully at some point in time we'll get to a place where we can do our job without anyone saying that others can do it better. Resources and referrals. Gamblers Anonymous has got a number of cool resources. I think it is a cool place to go. They've been doing it. They know what they're doing. But again, it's not for everybody, right? CAMH I referred to with Dr. Bruce Ballin. They have the Problem Gambling Institute of Ontario. They've kind of changed it a little bit, but they have a number of resources available online if you want to kind of check them out. You got some of the tools or resources that I have embedded in that Gmail or Google Doc file have come from CAMH. There is a counterpart, like Alcoholics Anonymous has got Al-Anon, Gamblers Anonymous has got Gam-Anon, support for family members or persons affected by another person's gambling dependency. A great resource. They have meetings. The meetings are online with the pandemic and so on, but another good resource. Connex Ontario, again, Ontario based. I'll take the slap on the hand for being regional in my presentation. But Connex Ontario has got the problem gambling helpline for individuals that are looking for support or resources, like where do I find a counselor if I wanted one? They can give them that information there. Additionally, Smart Recovery, I'm sure you've referred to some of your clients there. Smart Recovery is cool because they are inclusive, right? Non-religious, it's facilitated using cognitive behavioral type tools, downloadable worksheets. They support multiple dependencies for persons with them, as well as family members affected by them. So sex, shopping, gambling, gaming, and chemical dependencies. Additional supports. So our certification board has been involved over the past, maybe 3 years in assisting with the development of Canada's low-risk gambling guidelines. This is a first for Canada. It's a feather in our cap, and it's the first for the world, which is really, really cool. So they're done. There's just a few little tweaks that need to happen in order to get an accurate translation from the English verbiage to the French equivalent. Being a bilingual country, need to make sure that both sides are fairly represented and that the message is communicated in a similar and unique manner. So like the low risk drinking guidelines, the low risk cannabis use guidelines, the low risk gambling guidelines will be put forward probably in the fall. They should be released, where an individual could adhere to these guidelines and offset the potential, the high potential probability, if we use the risks and stats, the math portion for the students in those classrooms, to kind of reduce the probability of developing a dependency, right? So staying in your lane, right? Some of the harm reduction suggestions that I've given clients are, only gamble what you can afford, right? Leave your bank card at home. There are a number of proactive strategies that individuals could engage in that are well known to seasoned gambling addiction therapists that are captured in these low risk guidelines. So I'm excited to see that put forward, and you heard it here first. So you'll see it soon. It's very exciting for Canada and for the treatment industry. Like I mentioned before, I work with individuals with sex dependencies and shopping dependencies. Having an internet gaming disorder, having regulators on computers with your internet service provider, having like cyber nanny kind of software can help. Although people are pretty savvy and resourceful and can bypass. I'll get a different device. I'll get a burner phone, right? The challenge with the online gambling platforms is that with your cell phone, you got a casino in your pocket that never closes, right? So it's quite a challenge that way, to support individuals that are determined to continue with their, I guess, their dependency. So we'll move up another level. Yep, go ahead.
Side.
Okay. Yeah, the stock market definitely is identified within a list of potential gambling practices, although not everyone will attest to that being reality. But in my experience, it has been. So internet gaming disorder, I'm going to go over this quickly. I don't want to burden you with it. There was another presentation throughout the weekend that talked about tech overuse. So I'm hoping that some of these issues would have been presented. Certainly I'd be willing to come back and re-present on internet gaming disorder or any other skill set or background I may have or may need to have to help with that knowledge transmission. But this picture, again, speaking 1,000 words, my kids, my sons, they don't like reality so much. They rather be in front of a screen many times, and so I love this picture a lot. And giving that kind of presentation, it's the same kind of thing, right? Just kind of transferable skills. What games have you played, and kind of normalize that experience. I do play games. I'm not gaming averse. I'm dependent gaming averse, however. Non-payment. Yeah, so with the non-payment of online gambling, I've had a number of individuals that have done that as well. Stephanie, it's a great question. One of the or comment. One of the risks is it's very similar to if you equate it to a person with an alcohol dependency drinking near beer, right? And even with the near beer, there is a small percentage of alcohol. So in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, they wouldn't necessarily be defined as a person in active recovery because they're still having alcohol in their system. To each their own on that. But yeah, it does pose a risk. Because the free play, it definitely is a gateway for escalated play involving funds. Game types, there's a number of game types, and yeah, you'll have this this slide deck available. My favorite game type, I'm old school, right, is a platformer game that's going from left to right across the screen. I can't handle the up and down and in and outs. It makes me dizzy. But people will present with a number of different game choices. And again, it's about asking, well, what types of games do you play? What types of gambling do you do? What does that do for you? And having that conversation so we can kind of get into the client's world, right, and understand what's going on for them. Internet gaming disorder was proposed in the DSM-5. It's not official. It's there. It's in the ICD-11, as I noted, and again, you have this in your slide deck to see that it's very similar to gambling disorder, right? Indicating 5 or more within a 12-month period, and there's 9 criteria for that aspect. The last one has jeopardized a law or lost a significant relationship, job, or educational or career opportunity because of internet gaming. Again, there are losses that can occur as a result of our overuse or over involvement with our respective dependencies or practices. Reasons for gaming, there's, again, go back to that earlier slide around gambling, similar stuff, right? I'm doing it for socialization. I'm doing it for escape. Yeah, John, I am too, right? And so there are a number of educational providers. Cam Adair, I don't know if you're familiar with his work. If not, I would suggest you write his name down and check him out. He is a person with lived experience as a champion around prevention awareness. I guess initiatives. He is the co-founder of Intentia. It's an educational opportunity. It's an online certification course for leveling up clinicians on how to assess internet gaming dependency and how best to support clients with that respective concern. So yeah, I'm imagining that you're going to see it more and more. And I'll tell you, the reason why I am sharing this with you is because there is a strong correlation or intersection with gambling. Right. Again, when is it a problem? Well, it's a problem when it causes problems, essentially. Right. There is stigma around gaming addiction, just like there are other dependencies. We get these kind of pictures of thinking, well, that's the typical gamer right there, sitting in the parents' basement, urinating in pop bottles, right? Not doing any self-care, that type of thing. But that's not always the case. I didn't put this in my bio, but we in Ontario started the first residential treatment program for video game dependency, and it's been going strong ever since. There's also a family program in Windsor, Ontario, for persons affected by another person's gaming, and it's quite successful as well. So, oftentimes we'll get into that whole comparison, right? Well, it's not as bad as this. But for the person or the family that's dealing with it, it is a problem, and it deserves, it merits support. A gaming continuum similar to any other continuum, right? We got no gaming all the way up to serious impairment. This right here is provided to you as a reference, not necessarily a clinical validated assessment or tool by any means, but the more hours that we spend, the less time that we have to invest in other domains of our life, which could invariably cause problems for somebody, right? So it's a reference tool for you. One of the things I don't see on games, although the Entertainment Software Ratings Board, the ESRB, has some kind of like disclaimers on games saying, may involve simulated acts of violence or swearing and that type of thing, which is good, but they don't have this kind of stuff. Right. I had an individual in his 60s who was gaming quite steadily and had suspended his biological needs to such an extent that he was unable to control himself anymore. He was en route to come see me in a clinic, and had to call on his phone midway to say I can't come because I used the washroom on the way, right? Like I urinated on myself, and I didn't know it was coming, right? And so that's one of the risks. And I don't want to do like the whole scared straight thing, right? Like if you game, you're gonna pee on yourself. Like that's not the thing. But there are a number of complications that can occur as a result of denying our biology, denying our I guess balanced lifestyle that people aren't really considering when they get into there, right? Tetris thumb, that's N64 thumb, that's dated, right? But if you're playing games, I play with my wife, we're playing this bee simulator game on Roblox because our son, he loves that game. So we're trying to play with them and engage with them, and my thumb just can't handle moving all around. So I understand that N64 thumb is pretty tough. And the Tetris effect, what it is that you're playing a game for so long that when you stop playing, you can still see the game kind of moving around. You close your eyes and you're dreaming about the game. So that can happen quite often. Oh, well, thanks, Dennis. Warning signs, very similar, right? Neglected self-care, that's a warning sign for all of us, right? In supporting individuals. Social withdrawal in real life. This uh, Here you go again. Um, the Oh, sorry, I'm gonna go back to that previous slide if it will go for me. There you go. Social withdrawal with this whole pandemic, right? Like, I don't want to be diagnosing anyone or assessing anyone because of their behaviors during a pandemic that are temporary, right? For any type of diagnosis to stick, it's got to be 6 months or more, right? Now, a person could be definitely showing early signs of dependency and problematic behavior, and that can be treated, that can be supported. But I think there's a lot of coping mechanisms that are happening right now that are not necessarily reflective of an individual's ongoing choices or lifestyle. That when this kind of veil is lifted, that return back to quote unquote normal will be the telltale sign whether or not those behaviors continue. Risk factors, a lot of similar risk factors to your work, right? Pre-existing mental health concerns, right? Concurrent disorders, financial problems. So again, with the gaming and gambling, the intersection, persons can gamble on games, right? So I'm a really good Pac-Man player, right? And you and myself, Marion, we could have a competition on who's the best player, and Robin might say, well, I'll place bets on Shawn because I hear he's a really good gamer, and so we got that kind of stuff, but that's formalized. They have formal online gambling opportunities to bet on esports, right? So there is that aspect as well that is becoming more and more visible. Substitute tools and screeners. So this is the problem with internet gaming disorder, and I would suggest that it's a problem with all of our respective dependencies in the treatment of. There are so many different screeners and opportunities to engage individuals, but which one is the best, right? I say the best one is the one that you use personally, right? Because that over reliance on the validated screener, I think, is a detriment to our clinical work. In that, really, for me, it's a way to kind of engage in discussion and get right from that initial kind of assessment phase to the treatment planning to the relapse prevention phase in one's treatment or care plan. So there are a number of them. Again, I can provide you with a list of tools that I commonly use. That's not included in that Google Drive folder, but I can certainly hook you up following today's presentation if you want. There is an online assessment tool that's been validated. It's called the Internet Addiction Test. It's developed by Dr. Kimberly Young. She was and still is the forerunner for internet gaming dependency, internet addiction. She coined the phrase internet addiction. She's awesome. She's still in practice. So this is available online. If you type in internet addiction test or look for net addiction, you can do a self-assessment and see whether or not you qualify. Yeah, for sure. That transfer of dependencies is very concerning. Treatment approaches very similar. There's cognitive behavioral therapy, internet addiction, which Dr. Kimberly Young proposed and developed. You can do abstinence-based with everything. Harm reduction, using motivational interviewing. All your clinical skill sets can be applied for internet gaming disorder, gambling dependency, social media dependency, internet addiction. It's being trained in these different disciplines. I can see the intersection. And, when people say addiction is addiction, it's not entirely true, but there is some truth in that, right? Like there are a lot of commonalities and transferable skills. Harm reduction suggestions, trial abstinence, environmental change, use the rating guide. The rating guide is not I would not suggest that people totally rely on that, because what happens is they have like a committee of people that will play a game for like an hour, and they'll say, oh, there's X amount of instances of blood in here, and then there's so much violence and whatever, right? And so they rate it based on that experience of gameplay. But when you open up a game to an online environment and they have like, just like us on the Zoom, you don't know what a person's bringing to the table, right? I could be sending porn through through a chat feature, right, to a minor, right? There could be a number of things that are, or death threats, like the cyberbullying. All that stuff can happen within the open concept of gameplay, which a lot of these games are now, as opposed to, you know, you plug in the cartridge in your respective gaming console, and you're off and running. Removing the game center from kid's bedroom to a living room allows for a little bit more parental supervision. But again, if we go back to that cell phone thing, you got an arcade in your pocket, right? For many of these kids and adults. One of the things that I get asked is, you know, what's the common age of gamers that have presented to your clinic, and you know, they'll think that, you know, it's probably like in between 12 and 16. The average age of a gamer is mid-30s, right? And it's not just all men; it's women too. There are medications looked at for gambling disorder and gaming disorder. There is a medication that is for gambling disorder that, well, for persons with gambling disorder that really should not be on it. It's a medication for restless leg syndrome that actually kind of activates the brain in such a way that it kind of initiates or say enables a person's gambling dependency. It makes them crave it that much more, right? To get into kind of like almost like a bipolar or a manic binge like experience. So there are medications that kind of help curb those dependencies. Not the same as the medications that we have for like opioid use disorder, but more so of like a secondary medication, like to treat anxiety or depression. That, you know, again, was the chicken or the egg? What's the problem? What's the solution? Treating those underlying contributing issues, those secondary issues, can ultimately have a positive effect on one's behavior or dependency. Parental controls and apps, again, there's the cyber nanny kind of things, internet service provider. There's a number of controls that a person can put on their devices. I would encourage, if you are in a parental role, or if you are supporting family members who have a person that is, you know, of a younger age, that they can have that access. Putting in that software controls can be helpful. But again, it's about relationships too, right? Not necessarily controlling, but supporting and creating spaces and places where gaming it can be fun, but isn't the top dog when it comes to entertainment. Right. It could be, you know, I really look forward to going out to the movies with my kids, or we go camping or whatever, right? Kind of switching things up. Resources and referrals. There are a number of resources, again, going back to that CAMH. They are supporting internet gaming dependency. They have been for a number of years. Online Gamers Anonymous, very similar to 12-Step Gamblers Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous. There's so many anonymous groups in the world. It's crazy. There is a Computer Addicts Anonymous. I didn't put the link in here, but there's Game Quitters. That's Camadere's resource. Again, very lots of YouTube videos on how to kind of address and treat your self-help tools. Very cool. Some love, COVID-19, stay home. Yeah. Soul Crush Story is a tool that I was involved with in developing. It's an online game that is very similar to Candy Crush. It's basically a social social tool to engage with education around prevention awareness for gaming dependencies or social media dependency. So if you type in your website Soul Crush Story, you got to use the Google browser as opposed to Microsoft Explorer. I don't know why Microsoft Explorer isn't well liked in the world, but for this particular app, it doesn't render very well. Quick counseling tips. You would know this as well. We want to create welcoming open spaces, value lived experience, become aware of our own bias. Having these kinds of educational opportunities certainly could help. Reframing experiences. When I work with clients with chemical dependencies and they tell me, Shawn, I deal drugs. Like, okay, cool. So, what do you want to do with that? Like, well, I want to kind of stop it. The lifestyle's not so good, but I don't have any work experience. Like, what am I supposed to do, right? Like, well, you got good sales experience, you got good marketing experience. We could capitalize on that. What do you think about that, right? So it's really about identifying what the person brings to the table and finding creative ways with them to identify new opportunities. So are we still good? You ready for a bonus round? Research on clinical implications, cultural implications of problem. Yeah. So, yeah. It's an international public health issue, right? For gambling disorder, and in certain cultures, let's say the Chinese culture, there is gambling is revered in certain times, right? And so there are, as a gambling treatment specialist, there are training opportunities to help gain that cultural awareness on how to best support individuals presenting from different cultural backgrounds to understand, well, what are the nuances around gambling in your culture, and how can we best support you? So yeah, there are a number of resources out there, and if you want to PM me or send me an email, I can hook you up with some more specific I guess resources for your identified question. Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad, Michelle. Thank you. Yeah, I hope that you consider the Canadian Problem Gambling Certification Board. There is the CP, what's it? The global one. So CACCF, just like us, we have an industry competitor of sorts that offers a certification for chemical dependencies in addition to gambling disorder. So you're welcome to check them out. But again, we're the gold standard here in Canada. All right, so lessons learned from the field. Here you go. Here's the my takeaways. I've given you a couple of different things for food for thought, but I thought if I had the opportunity, I will give you everything I have, which I typically do with my clients. I'm like, bring a notebook. I'm not going to say anything profound, but you never know. You might get some ideas as a result of. So top 10 therapy takeaways. I need to have, yes. So Daryl, you're right around using language. I use language purposely and I guess in a way that I want to trigger people, right? And why would I want to do this? Because Shawn's a sadistic. No, it's because I think that it allows for additional opportunity for conversations. Like, how did you feel about that? What did you think about that? I had scratch cards at one time as like a community education thing, right? So working for an agency, we made up these scratch cards, and the scratch cards was like you scratch 3 in a row, and you get this messaging saying, gambling can affect your life, or I don't know, whatever the message was, right? And so this guy comes in, and this is earlier on in my career, but this guy comes in and he says, scratch cards are pretty challenging for me. I have a hard time with them. And so I'm like, I got a scratch card for you. And he lit up. He's like, what? Right? I'm like, here you go. Right. So he's at my desk, right? We're in this office, and he's scratching away, and he's all pissed off at me at the end. He's like, man, I thought this was for real. I'm like, dude, I'm not going to give you a real scratch card in my office. Like, that's not going to happen. But what did you learn from this? Because I tell you, I saw you light up, right? If this is what's happening for you, do you think that it's a good practice going forward, right? where are you on this continuum? And so it allowed for a therapeutic conversation. But yeah, we got to be mindful of that. When I talk to gamers, I use their language, right? I use words like level up. I use it all the time. Audrey would know this, but we're on friends, but also on social media together. I use this terminology purposefully. Because when a client hears the words that they're familiar with, they know that you're informed. They know that you're in, right? If you're working with a person with substance dependency, right, and say their drug of choice is cannabis, and you're like, oh, so do you use cannabis, or do you smoke marijuana? And they'd be like, what? Like I smoke pot, right? And even the word pot can be dated, right? It's all about meeting the client where you're at. Okay, so with that all being said, I'm going to give you the top 10 therapy takeaways that I have to share with you today. So moving down. Number 10, whack-a-mole. We already talked about this before. If the core issues are not dealt with, other dependencies will surface. And I've seen this, right? Polysubstance use or polydependencies, right? So I quit drinking, but I don't treat the underlying factors. I still have anxiety. I still have depression. And now I've switched to cocaine use or to online shopping or sex or gaming, gambling, etc. Number 9, uninvited guests. I use this with clients all the time because we talk about the intrusive thoughts, right? I just can't control my thoughts, and I'm thinking about yes, start smoking treatment for sure. Have a hard time not smoking in recovery because they go to places like 12-step meetings, and in a part of the that whole fellowship aspect is the meeting before the meeting at the meeting, and the meeting after the meeting, and a lot of people are smoking, right? So how do I socialize with individuals and feel quote unquote normal without when in Rome, do as the Romans do, kind of thing. So I use this one, the uninvited guest. So if I go into your house and you invite me for dinner, and I go around and I start pulling, and no offense to my Greek friends, right? Start doing opa, right? Breaking all the dishes, and how long are you gonna keep me around? Right? They're like, well, I wouldn't keep you around very. I tell you to get out. I'm like, well, what is your behavior doing to your life? Right? They're the uninvited guests. This addiction is the uninvited guest. It's causing havoc in your home. How long are you going to allow it to stay? Number 8, family system. You all know this, right? Oftentimes, we'll have individuals go away to a residential treatment program. They'll leave their home environment, their fishbowl, and they'll end up going into a nice environment. They'll get all, quote unquote, cleaned up, and then they'll go back to the dirty fishbowl, the untreated family system, right? And or the untreated community, right? Their old playgrounds, and it won't be too long. In many cases, where they'll go back to problematic behavior. Pathway ruts. So we know about this neural pathways, right? The more that we engage in a behavior, the deeper the pathway gets. We can create new neural pathways by new behaviors. But again, we can't treat it and feed it at the same time, is something that I've heard before. And I believe that particularly for persons with an identified addiction, quote unquote, that are on that far end of the continuum, trial abstinence is a great way to establish a clinical baseline to see what else is really going on. Number 6, algebra and recovery. So I'll have clients come in and I'm like, hey, how are you with your math skills? And like, I'm not good. I'm like, okay, we're going to talk about algebra. I'm like, whoa, this is not for me, man. Like, what are you doing to me? So I use this. I'm like, especially the folks that are using, engaging in their behaviors, gambling, gaming, etc. Because I try to download the info from your presentation. Try this link and hopefully it works for you. So algebra and recovery, when they have high expectation, they get the resentments, right? If our expectations are not greater than our level of acceptance, we're okay, right? We're not going to drink or use because we get pissed off. And so being mindful of our emotions is really important in recovery. Number 5, change the question. And I'm not trying to be avoidant, right? But when it is that I have a client saying, how did I get this problem, right? How come I'm an addict, or how come I can't stop gambling or gaming? I say, okay, like how, what is that question serving you, right? And maybe we can't get to that answer right away, but instead of saying, like, why me, and engaging in that, those depressive thoughts, that the quote unquote pity party, maybe we could say, what now? What do I do now? Right? I lost my job. Well, what now? What are we going to do now? Right? It's about pivoting and changing the question to a place, to use that serenity prayer. Right? What are the things that we can change? Number 4, Dr. Phil. Dr. Phil, I don't necessarily like him, right? So why do I got a picture of him? Dr. Phil said one time on an episode, I was listening in the background, and he was talking about how people say that time heals all wounds. And he says, I call bullshit on that. I'm like, whoa, Dr. Phil, you're getting a little racy here. What's going on? And what he said is that it's not time that heals all wounds. It's what we do with the time. Right. And so, we get the people that believe and I'm not trying to slam residential at all. Okay. I used to work in residential. I love it. I believe in it. I'll continue to send clients there if they need to. But there's this community expectation that when a person goes to this respective place, that they're going to get better. Right. They're not going to get better unless they want to get better. Right. Unless they invest in, they utilize the tools that they're given. So recovery really is about moving forward and putting in the work. Number 3, Welcome to the Matrix, one of my favorite movies. Yeah. Yeah. Dr. Phil he's the jury's out, right? So Welcome to the Matrix, one of my favorite movies. Oftentimes I have clients like that one I was talking to you before about, the person with the drug dealing background, right? I don't have any skills. What do I do? Well, in recovery, if a person's immersed in like a self-help group kind of thing, they have the opportunity of accessing, like it's like the internet of skill sets, the internet of networking, right? They can learn the things that they were never taught, the things that they chose not to learn at the time because they were dealing with something different. Right? How do I have relationships in recovery? How can I be successful? How can I have a balanced life? How can I live without drugs, alcohol, gambling, etc.? We can learn those skills. And like Neo in the Matrix, he got all that program. He learned how to do Kung Fu by learning a new skill. 2 more. Number 2, you have to hit rock bottom. You've heard this many a times, right? You have to hit rock bottom. Where is rock bottom? You have to hit rock bottom is something that I hear oftentimes. I don't like the implication of it or the context in many senses, but I do agree with it. And the reason why is because I redefine rock bottom as being when you put down the shovel and you stop digging your own hole. That's when you hit rock bottom. The ultimate rock bottom obviously is death. Right. But oftentimes clients will compare themselves to others and say, well, I'm not as bad as Johnny. So maybe, I got a little bit of gambling life left in me, or maybe a little bit of drinking left in my run. Right. I don't belong here. But again, it's about stopping the digging your own hole and putting a foundation in the hole that you built. Last one. Favorite movie of all time, Karate Kid, bonsai meditation. When I was working at Westover, for sure, Trevor. When I was working at Westover Treatment Center, I would do meditations with the clients, and the ones that had been in their like final week, the seniors would say, "Hey, man, do that meditation, that bonsai thing with the clients," and I do it, right. So what I would have everyone do is I'd have them, and you could do this now. You got your cameras on silent, your speakers on silent. You can clap your hands together and just kind of rub your hands, right? And I don't want you to take the skin off your hands, right? Rub it furiously, but you can feel a little bit of heat there, right? In between. And so, if you're just kind of doing this in a waiting room somewhere, somebody said, what is that person doing? They could think that you're just warming up your hands, right? So what I have them do is after they've kind of warmed up their hands is kind of cup them, right? Like this, right? Like almost like you're holding a ball. And so inside that ball, I'm also a Reiki master. I don't know if I mentioned that, but you kind of visualize that space in between your hands, like look at it, feel it, right? And when a person is mindful of the space in between their hands, they can feel energy there. That's their own energy, right? And a person can kind of focus on their own energy at any time and kind of regroup, reset, anywhere, right? If you're just kind of sitting here like this, nobody's gonna say, "Hey, man, I know what you're doing," right? It's a way to get refocused, right? And I encourage mindfulness, mindful living at any time. So treatment's not recovery. Yeah, for sure. Some people call them discovery homes, but yeah, it's all about what you do afterwards. Okay, so here's your opportunity for questions. Are there any? I know I kind of like bulldozed through that. I want to kind of give you the most of the time that you have. Hopefully I did it justice. You don't feel like, oh, that's lost time. I'll never get back, man. Like, I wish I would have signed up for option B. But yeah, any questions? We got a quiet group today. So extreme sports could be a gamble. There's definitely betting on sports events. Yeah, I stayed up last night to watch the McGregor fight and was very disappointed. But that's a little bit not my perky self, and she could be pinching my cheeks to look a little bit more flush. But yeah, I was up last night and paid for it. Didn't take Rick's advice, right? I stayed up. Risking one's life. Well, yeah, of course, man. You get into that to that octagon or get in any extreme sports, you're definitely risking. But for some people, that's a risk they're willing to take. The Intentia course, reading through Cam Adair. So I will type that in the chat box here. Cam Adair, and you can also check out Game Quitters. He is the founder of that, and is the co-founder and presenter of the Attentia gaming disorder educational course. The cool thing about that course, there's a whole bunch of educational opportunities. Okay, like I'm not getting any kind of feedback or endorsements for promoting his stuff, but the cool thing about his course is that it is pre-credited or accredited. The CEUs account for professional development CEUs with our organization, the Problem Gambling Counseling Certification Board, and in addition to the International Gambling Certification Board. So yeah, it's well vetted. It's a great course, and I would highly encourage anyone to check it out if you're so interested.
Hi, Shawn.
Yes.
Dennis here.
Hi. How are you?
I didn't know how to put my hand up, so I couldn't find it.
Okay.
So I'm sorry for interrupting.
Oh no, you're fine.
Yeah, I'm just calling. I'm from British Columbia.
Okay.
And I see some contradiction in how the gambling program operates in BC. They'll say things like know your limit, stay within it.
Yeah.
That's one. The other one is they allow the casinos to advertise how they do some of their income to support communities, but counselors don't have any opportunity to criticize the investors of those casinos in how they got that money. And so it's a contradiction. And I think it's difficult for counselors, but I only say that it's difficult and it's helping them work through it.
Yeah, for sure. This right here, I just put a link into the chat box there for a folder on my YouTube channel. It's got a whole bunch of gambling videos that are really, really cool. If you want to kind of get a lived experience perspective, there are some videos there with clients talking about what's going on for them in the recovery, in addition to other recovery tools. For your comments there around being gambling neutral, It's a position that gambling counselors are expected to have, given that our funding is coming from the casino, and because you have clients that have mixed goals too, right? Like we don't want to be all abstinent based and saying gambling is evil when their goal is harm reduction, right? We're going to chase them right out of the rooms. So meeting the client where they're at, understanding that not everyone who gambles is going to develop a dependency, but also understanding that the marketing tactics of not only in British Columbia, it's international, that the marketing tactics are done purposefully, meticulously, intentionally to kind of skew the dialogue. Right. Know your limit, play within it is something that the Ontario Lottery Gaming Commission put out a number of years ago. And the challenge is with my clients anyway, they say, I don't know my limit until I've already passed it. Right? Like I'm already done. Right. I know my limit. My limit is I can't gamble anymore. And I don't even have money to gamble because it's all gone. Right. So, yeah, I can appreciate that. I'll tell you something as a personal disclosure. In Chatham, Kent, is my hometown, right? I love my hometown. I don't live there anymore, but they opened up a casino, right? A few years back. I had the opportunity of being on social media and interviewed on CTV. I don't know, I think it was. And I was saying in my role, I was the coordinator of that residential treatment program that we were talking about for gambling disorder. I was talking about how it is that we have seen an influx of clients from Chatham, Kent seeking supports, and that with the opening of the casino, it will invariably cause more individuals or result in more individuals seeking supports with an infrastructure that is not highly established. Like there's not enough gambling counselors certified. And I know this because I'm the president of the board, that there's not enough gambling counselors that can support that. And I was restructured out of my role.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
And all the people that I have in my corner were like, Shawn, like you spoke the truth. This is great. Like, thank you for advocating for clients. Thank you for advocating for the community. Like, you're a leader, right? Champion of change. But sometimes being a leader has its costs.
Yeah.
Right. So I bit the bullet. I spoke out of turn. I should have remembered what hat I had on. But yeah, it is a very fine line on how to speak in a respectful and meaningful, informative way. So not as to piss too many people off in positions of power, but also advocate for your community.
Yeah. Well, I really don't think you spoke out of line on that one.
Yeah.
But the whole thing is, this COVID thing has really set the tone for the investors of casinos. Could the government in BC shut the casinos down because of COVID?
Yeah.
And to me, there's contradiction there.
Mm-hmm.
Illness got the nod, where people getting and losing, and you talked about it, losing their retirements and their homes and stuff to gambling. And they still weren't shutting them down. It's hard for me to accept that. But I do thank you for your presentation. It's great. Thank you very much.
Right on. That's cool. Yeah, they did the marketing around slots. It's they have research labs all on this stuff, right? Like, how can we make gambling more fun, right? How can we keep the players at the table longer? And so those slot mechanics have been replicated that to gaming, right? On top of that intersect with the random generators, right? The reward system, the loot boxes. Check out loot boxes if you're interested in gaming and how it intersects with gambling. If you type in loot boxes on the internet, you're gonna get a whole plethora of information. It's like, whoa, I didn't know this was going down, right? Picture that I gave to you and somebody said, oh, that could be triggering, right? With the bonus round, right? That was they have slot machines in Nintendo, right? Like the kids are getting groomed for becoming gamblers later, not necessarily problem gamblers, but gamblers later on in life. Yeah, imagine, just imagine, right? That's the whole thing about addiction is all about fantasy, right? Right? The advertising for beer, right? Or any kind of alcohol is like everybody's having a great time, and just imagine hanging out with all these beautiful people and being the star of the show, or you win the lottery, you get to sail on this yacht. Like it's all based on fantasy.
Yeah, it's
Shawn?
internet. Oh, I'll go. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Shawn. Yeah, we are coming
Yeah,
towards
for
the
sure.
end there, but I want to thank you very much for a wonderful presentation there. I could see by all the comments there, and people know how to reach you through the Hoova app.
Good.
And I'll let you shut things down at your end there, and we're going to scoot on to the networking rooms. And thank you very much on behalf of the CACCF and the Institute on Addiction Studies. Great job.
Right on. Thank you very much, folks. Thank you for your time. I hope you have a great remainder of the weekend, and I look forward to connecting with you again in the near future. Take care.